Watch out, slipped and get the pass in here. Here's Rodriguez again. It's a stunning ball.
What is going on, guys? Jack here, and welcome to ForTheFans with me and my co-host Ben. And today we have for you guys our first official Premier League show. We'll give you a review of the weekend's action, looking at a little bit of what else has been going on in the footballing world, and of course bringing you our first fantasy football update. So let's get straight into this.
Hello, it's me, Ben, and my co-host Jack is with me. How you doing, Jack?
I'm good, thank you, Ben. It's good to be back, isn't it? After, well, I know we did the preview shows, but since the World Cup, there's kind of been a void in our lives.
Yeah, I just want to say a quick thank you to Kino for filling in for me. I had a little bit of a stomach bug, but I'm back and raring to go. We chose the first weekend of the Premier League. The podcast is based around the Premier League. We both went on holiday.
I know, that wasn't the best idea, was it? I mean...
No.
I'm going to have a gripe with my parents. My brother and I, we kind of went for alternate weeks, whereas my parents went for 2 weeks away. And, well, he got the good straw, didn't he? He got back for the Premier League football. I was sat there on Twitter going, this is my footballing experience.
Did you have a nice holiday?
I did, although I got stuck in the middle of the ocean. I don't know if you heard about the supermoon.
Let's hear more.
Well, have you heard about the supermoon? I don't know if there was a supermoon in England, but it was all they were talking about in Portugal, was the fact the moon is closer than it's ever been before. But this obviously means that the tides are stronger. And
right.
So it meant that low tide was a lot lower than you'd expect. And I went on a boat trip and got stuck in the ocean.
Brilliant.
I still have better 3G, though, than in England, so I was able to tweet out that I was playing FM handheld, rather than ring for the Coast Guards.
Well, it was ironic, really. I was in France watching you panic on Twitter while in the middle of the ocean, and that was kind of my evening, or my afternoon one day. Just you worried about not being able to go anywhere, which was... it's fun for me. Shall we crack on, though? We've got lots to talk about.
Yeah, this isn't a sailing podcast, so we probably should talk about the football. Where do you want to start? Because
I'd like to get to fantasy football.
Fantasy football from the off. Shall we? I know we plugged it in the preview shows, but do you want to refresh the memories of those who may have missed the previous shows?
So, me and Jack set up For The Fantasy. Good name, right?
That's a great name.
Thank you. 651 people so far have signed up. If you'd like to sign up, there's probably links to the description of the YouTube video. Also, it's on our Twitter if you have a little route round for it. So if you have signed up, thank you very much. We're going to have a quick gloss over who did the best. I've got the top three, and then this week's loser, who we'll come on to in a minute. Out of me and you, Jack, we were relatively similar, although Ellie, my girlfriend, is currently beating me. So...
Did she beat me, or did I surpass her on the Monday night?
I've not checked, but she had Fabregas. So...
Oh, okay, well, she won.
Okay. Anyway, so we'll start with we'll do reverse order. So in third place, as it stands, Matt Dean's team, Gazelle Dragons, 78 points in third place. He's got players such as Koscielny, who scored at the weekend, Ramsey also, Sterling and Rooney is captain. Along a similar theme, Geordie Wilson in second place, Battlers Inc. You had James Chester for Hull, is that?
That is a risky pick.
But clean sheet and a goal.
Yeah.
So, you also had Sigurdsson, another risky pick away at Old Trafford. Obviously got a goal. Ramsey, and then again Rooney, captain, who would have got him 14 points. And then the leader so far of our fantasy football is Ben King with Stella Courtois. Good name. I'm sure that's not that original now, but still a good name. He had Fabregas as captain, which got him 22 points, which is almost as many points as I bloody got. Then he had Ramsey, Dia, the guy who Tottenham have just signed from Sporting, Vla, David Silva, and Diego Costa, and that's 85 points. So if you have not already had a look, check out how you did. Let us know at For The Fans show. This week's loser was Bo Dallas, Jack. I'm not sure how seriously he's taking fantasy football. That's my concern.
Okay.
Shall I reel off a few names?
Yeah.
He's got Heaton in goal, McShane, Morgan, so a few Hull players, a few Leicester players. Jason Shackle, I know you're a fan of his.
Great fan of Jason Shackle.
Philip Senderos got 6 points and scored the highest for his team. Sammy Amiobi, Wilson Palacios, Bobby Zamora, Cameron Jerome, to name a few. He's on 12 points.
I have a feeling he's taking this seriously.
Well, I do wonder how much budget he's got left, because eventually what's going to happen is he's going to have like an incredible side, because he's probably got 50 million left to spend.
He's going to spend it all in January. He's be there like, right, let's sort this out.
Yeah, he is. He's going to fix it. Another team, Jack. Obviously, if you're not signed up for fantasy football, get on it. Another team that might need to fix it with some transfers. We're going to start with this game. It was Manchester United 1, Swansea City 2. United looks a little bit like David Moyes was still in charge.
They did. I loved the chant coming from the Swansea fans of "Are you Moyes in disguise?" That was a personal highlight for me, although I only got it from Twitter. I did actually see this game. I got Match of the Day 2 up. I actually saw Match of the Day 1 for this game. I'm worried for United a little bit. They played 5 at the back all of pre-season, and it seemed to work quite nicely. And after 45 minutes, it was like Van Gaal did the panic changes you do in Football Manager when you start out, and it's like, I must change the entire system at half-time.
Yeah, a week and a half ago, we recorded our preview show for Manchester United, and since then, they've not signed anybody. And, do they know the season's started? It's happening now, Van Gaal. And I see Woodward, who's their chief exec, I believe, is getting a lot of shit from United fans, and he always does, frankly. He's always getting pelters. But something needs to change. Their back line at the weekend was not very good, to say the least. They've got not a lot of experience, quite a lot of young English players just plying their trade in the Premier League for a Manchester United home game, the first game of the season. Van Gaal has got a job to do. They
look really bare at the fullback position as well. That's where the goal came from, like the kind of second goal, where it came from out wide on the left, the right back position. It just confused me a little bit. It's a very difficult shape to change from a 3-5-2 that Van Gaal was playing, because essentially you're stuck with 3 centre-backs unless you're really going to sub one of them off for a midfielder, and it's a tactic that once you're committed to, you can't really completely play like players all in their strongest positions unless you've got a very versatile squad. And that's something that I don't kind of feel like United have in that much abundance. You mentioned they just looked a little bit weak. Was it Blackett? Is that the name of the guy who kind of came in at 20 years old, I think he is, and he looked very inexperienced. And it wasn't down to him completely.
No.
But it's just a bit of a shambles.
But he's a prospect, but this is not how he's going to learn, in my book anyway. The thing with Van Gaal is, it's this, what he's doing is a very Van Gaal thing. He's looked at the Ferguson reign, and he's just said, well, that's gone now. He's looking at Moyes and he'll say, look, I'll change this, I'll make it different. And he's now instilled a system which he doesn't have the players for and isn't buying the players for. Like, Luke Shaw's never played in a 5 at the back, as far as I'm aware. He didn't for England, didn't last year for Southampton. He's got 3 defenders who I'm not sure have ever played in a 3. And then he's got Herrera, who has been sort of given this job to be the saviour of everything Manchester United related. But he's only one guy. Apparently Fellaini's off now. Fellaini's going to Napoli on loan. That was reported last night. But Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher were talking about the 3 at the back thing, or the 5 at the back thing, and saying that there's not a lot of players that are suited to playing it. It's interesting to me that Isla, who's gone to QPR, they mentioned it last night on Monday Night Football, Isla's gone to QPR, and United are lacking a right wing back, and he's coming from Juventus. He's not unknown. He's Isla. So I don't know. What were you going to say about it?
I'm worried. Was Fletcher playing at the weekend? I have a feeling he was playing alongside Herrera, and that's a position that they need a player in. They need someone who's going to be a real dogged player. I kind of feel like Fellaini was meant to be that and really wasn't. They need Vidal. I feel like I can state the obvious and say what everyone's saying, that they don't necessarily need Vidal himself, and I don't get why he'd go to Manchester United. We've talked about that before. I think the lack of European football is going to mean that they can't strengthen how they need to get the top 4, that they need to strengthen players, if that makes sense. It's kind of they're going to have to really kind of, I guess, scout out some good prospects. And
time is ticking, though, isn't it? Time is ticking. Not a long time to go. What day is it today that we're recording?
It's the 19th. It's Tuesday morning, so they've got essentially 2 weeks.
How many players do you think they need then? Because I find United very interesting.
I think they need 4 or 5 and 3 first-team players.
It's not going to happen, is it? It's not going to happen.
They need a right-back who can play right-back. They need at least one really, really good centre-back for me. A backup centre-back of some kind.
Yeah.
Probably a centre mid, a ball-winning midfielder. Someone who is going to do the job that Fletcher, I'm afraid to say, just doesn't have the athleticism to fulfil in kind of a 3-5-2 system or 5-3-2, however you want to look at it. And then probably just another player for in the centre if they're losing Fellaini. I am worried for United. I'm sure United. I don't know if United fans, I know you said about Woodward getting a lot of stick, I don't know if that comes from kind of the panic setting in perhaps with the fans that, oh crap, we've just lost to Swansea. And after a very promising pre-season, I mean, a lot was made of Manchester United's pre-season, and I kind of tweeted about it, saying that a good pre-season, a lot of people will say pre-season doesn't mean anything. For me, pre-season means something if you can keep the momentum you've got during it going into the main season. But one loss, like they had against Swansea, instantly kills that, and you're back to square one.
Yeah, any sort of pre-season is now just forgotten because they've lost their first game. It's not like you mentioned, it's not like the run has continued. We should take nothing away from Swansea. Gary Monk's side. Gary Monk's kind of... I don't think people really know what to make of him. He's kind of been given the job. It was a bit shocking to the outside world. I don't know how the people of Swansea felt. Oh, quickly, on United... Obviously, we're talking about them as kind of outsiders. If you're a fan, please tweet us at ForTheFans Show. Leave a comment on the YouTube video with tag MUFC, just so we know what you're referencing. Let us know where you think the problem lies. Is it Van Gaal? Is it just the squad not being good enough? Is it Woodward not bringing in the right players? What's the big issue here? I'm interested to see what you think as fans. But Swansea, really, really good. And you should take nothing away from a performance at Old Trafford, no matter what their side is. Yeah,
Monk has made some good signings. I know you missed the preview show, I believe, when me and Kuno talked about that.
I listened to it.
I was pretty happy with the signings Swansea made. I was a little bit disappointed that Gomes didn't get the nod alongside Boney. That's something I'd like to see them maybe play alongside each other. But they looked very good at Old Trafford. Like, you can't take anything away from them. I believe Key's goal, which was the first for them, had 27 passes in the build-up, which was more than any goal had in terms of passes leading to a goal last year. I actually know that the goal that Schürrle scored yesterday as well had 25 passes in it.
Yeah,
so
I was going to mention. Good
passing football there. But Swansea looked pretty sharp, and good to see Sigurdsson, who of course they picked up from Tottenham, and I'm very surprised they let him go, getting that goal for them, which got them the 2-1 win.
It does feel like he's wasted a year of his career now, doesn't it, at Tottenham? It did seem odd that he went there and didn't go to Swansea. And now it feels like although he wasn't like there, he was in Germany, wasn't he, beforehand? But now it feels like he's gone home and he's back in a side that he feels comfortable in. And it's ironic, really, that a few managers have gone by in that time and he's just returned back after a couple of seasons. Who was your standout man for Swansea?
I think Boney's got to have a good year this year. I don't think he was necessarily the standout player against United, but I think he's a player who they're going to look to, and Gomes, and I think if they can kind of put in the goal scoring kind of, I guess, performances they put in last year, they're going to have a very good season, I think. I mean, you look at Benteke when he was really firing them in 2 years ago for Villa, and the difference that makes, the difference in the Premier League between a lot of teams is a goal scorer. Yeah. And I feel as if one of them can bang in 15 goals, they should be fine. And I think they'll be fine anyway, because I think Monk has got them playing some very nice football. He's been at the club a while, Gary Monk. He knows how they play. He's seen the managers that you mentioned come and go. And he's kind of, I feel as if he's learned from that, and he really knows his squad that he has. It's not like he's inheriting a squad where he just doesn't really know what he wants, and perhaps he doesn't know what he needs, which is actually a situation I think Van Gaal finds himself in, where he might feel like a bit like the task is a bit more than he expected.
Yeah, interesting with Gary Monk that he gets a lot of stick, but it shouldn't be forgotten that the managers that he played under and was part of the same kind of unit with were Martinez, Rodgers, and Laudrup. Martinez and Rodgers are two of the hottest properties in British football right now. I know Martinez is Spanish. I mean, within the place. They both
within
both Premier League managers.
Within the English sphere.
Yeah, and he's obviously learned and picked up things from them. So in a couple of years' time, we may put Gary Monk in the same category as those two. We don't know. You never know. But yeah, Swansea should be very proud of their performance. I don't think you should take anything away from a victory away at Old Trafford, no matter who's in charge or who's playing. So there you are. I think each week, Jack, we're probably going to cover one game in detail, and then we're just going to kind of gloss over a couple others, and then maybe just not talk about the boring ones. So just so people know, that's probably how this is going to go.
It's not like you're coming here looking for the scores. We want to talk about the interesting stuff. As much as I'd love to talk about the thrilling Hull 1-0 win with James Chester getting the goal, it's not quite got as many talking points, perhaps. But we've covered that one now, so that's another one off the list. That's 2 down. Shall we move on to the first game of the Sunday, Super Sunday, which was Liverpool v Southampton.
Yeah.
Get those muddled up.
I want to start off by saying that I thought Southampton, despite their turmoil they're apparently in, I thought Koeman had them playing some really nice stuff. It looked a little bit like Pochettino's Southampton, just without the players, because a lot of them have left. But obviously Liverpool come away with a win. I think Liverpool fans generally, I'm just happy with the win. To give a little bit of insight.
I was a little bit concerned with the defensive performance. It almost felt as if Lovren hadn't had enough time to bed him, which isn't really surprising considering he's been at the club just a few weeks. It felt, particularly in the second half, like Southampton really had a go. I know a lot was made about the fact Southampton probably deserved to get a little bit more from the game, but I think actually that game, the game in itself kind of perhaps highlighted for me what is Southampton's big issue, and that is defensively. I feel as if we talked and I mentioned before about how Swansea, if a goal scorer can kind of turn up, they're going to be fine. I really worry for the Southampton defence, because it doesn't matter how many chances you have going forward, I just don't feel like they have any strength in the core centre-back positions, and I think that's going to cost them. You look at kind of the freedom that Sterling got coming down the middle, and Sturridge would peel out wide to the right, and there was so much space for him to run into. And as much as I have my Japan allegiances, I just Yoshida and was it Fonte who played? I don't know who it was.
Yeah, Fonte. Yeah,
Font. I just, for me, they're not good enough, and I think that could cost them point after point.
Well, it shouldn't be forgotten they've still got money to spend, and I think, much like Manchester United, I think Southampton will be looking to strengthen their back line. Lovren's a big miss. I actually thought you were a little bit critical of Lovren. I thought Lovren was really good. First half, I thought he was excellent. Second half, I just trust him. He's just a player that I trust, and that's all I want.
I should say, I wasn't really criticising Lovren so much as I was criticising the cohesion overall in the defence. There was just a few times where the shambles, and I kind of attribute that to a new face in the back four.
That's kind of to be expected. That's not, and obviously there was two new players in that back four for Liverpool, so you can't really look too much into it. Speaking objectively, it is very important for Sterling and Sturridge to take the kind of mantle of Suarez. In previous years gone by, not last season so much, but in seasons before, that's a game Liverpool simply wouldn't have won. So to see them kind of dig in and get a win from it is really good. Nathaniel Klein's goal was good. Bit of a segue there, but it just came into my mind, much like the ball flew into the net. It was quite a well-worked move. I liked it. It
was. And Tadic, I know you talked about the Liverpool debutants. I actually felt as if I was about to say Southampton's debutants really kind of, I think, established themselves. And if there was any doubts, and I've got to be honest, I am still a doubter of Southampton after one good performance. I'm going to be completely honest. I hope I'm wrong, because it's good to see them in the Premier League, because they are one of the few teams who really, focus on that kind of young English player philosophy.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that's perhaps been somewhat lost this summer. But they look like the signings they made are going to have an impact for them. Tadic, you mentioned the Klein goal. The reason I kind of brought him up was because of the assist he got, where I think it was Lovren was marking him tight, he gets the cheeky little back heel. And for me, when Nathaniel Klein scored, I mean, he hasn't scored in, I think, almost 2 years. It was like when you play football in this playground as a kid, and the kid who isn't particularly good at football just scores a wonder goal, and everyone's kind of there like, was that really him? The way he hammered it in. I'm sorry, Nathaniel Klein, if you're watching. You are that school kid to me.
Poor Nathaniel Klein. Yeah, you mentioned Tadic. I thought Tadic was really good. Also, Ward-Prowse, a lot of his mates have just disappeared. You talk about young English players. Ward-Prowse is kind of the antithesis of that. He's a very good young player, and to put a performance in like he did at Anfield, I'm sure Saints fans will have been really impressed with him. He didn't look like a passenger. He looked like he wanted the ball at every opportunity, and when he did have it, he was very good with it. There's one moment in particular where he had it and gave it to Stephen Davis, who could have made it 2-1.
It would have been 2-1. Yeah, that was a bad miss. Stephen Davis, I forgot he was at Southampton. I feel like we might see a bit more of him this year.
It was a lovely little layoff, and for a man of Ward-Prowse's age, so he's still a kid, isn't he? Really, to lay it off in such a composed manner in front of the cop was very good. Elsewhere, Arsenal versus Palace. Palace started very well actually. They got an early goal, relatively early. Breda Hangeland obviously moved from Fulham. We'll talk about. Do you know what? We were going to talk about Palace after we've talked about all this, but shall we talk about Tony Pulis now?
Let's go into this. I mean, this was the big talking point, wasn't it? Going into the opening weekend was the fact that Pulis. It kind of came out of nowhere as well. It wasn't like sometimes with a manager, in a kind of disagreement with the chairman or the directors or whatever, you hear murmurs of it beforehand. And I kind of feel like Pulis has kind of maybe proved the point that I don't know. He's not gonna take shit from anyone. Basically, I imagine him walking out like the Terminator. No fucks given, as he was told, right, get out.
He once headbutted James Beattie in a shower, so he's got form for being a bit of a reckless abandon. But fair enough to him. I think it's interesting. Who they're going to bring in now is the big question. Obviously, we're recording on Tuesday morning, so if something happens later, then we don't know about it. But they've got to do it soon. Whether it's Malky Mackay, whether it's Tim Sherwood, has been hotly touted. David Moyes definitely won't get it because he shouldn't be allowed back in the country. But despite all that, Palace started the game pretty well. I think they'll be disappointed to have lost it, really.
Yeah.
Hangeland got the first, then Koscielny replies pretty soon after that. And then it was a bit it was how you expected it to go. Obviously, Alexis Sanchez playing for Arsenal had a decent debut. Arsenal decided to start with Sanogo over Giroud, although he did come on later in the game. But it was late doors. Aaron Ramsey pops up, and it's quite nice to see Arsenal just carry on. I'm being complimentary of Arsenal. It feels a bit weird. That's why I was kind of stuttering. But for Arsenal to kind of show everyone else that, we can still be good, and we've signed a good player, and just watch out. And I think Liverpool did the same thing. I think Chelsea did the same thing. I think City did the same thing. All the kind of contenders from last season are showing once again that they're ready to go.
Yeah. You mentioned Ramsey. I thought it was really good to see Ramsey get the goal that he did, because it was very reminiscent of the start he had to last season. Of course, at the end of last year, he was hit pretty hard by injuries, and it very much kind of interrupted perhaps the flow of his season after Christmas, where definitely. He was kind of tipped to be that player of the year. And he's always been a player who's been tipped to have some potential, but he's always had, those injuries. I think he broke his leg a few years back, which really hurt his chances in the Arsenal first team. But to see him come up with that goal, it was very Arsenal from 2013-esque. It was what I expected to see from them last year, and so I was quite happy to see them have that fight. I think Arsenal fans, as much as anyone, were very relieved with that goal as well, because Palace did not make it easy. Palace were very resolute, and I feel as if they showed that even without Pulis, they've still got the players there who were able to get them above and beyond expectations perhaps last year when Pulis took over and made his acquisitions in January. Yeah,
no, I would agree with that, and I think Wenger will be pleased that he's off the mark. Palace weren't an easy fixture last season. I know Pulis has left, but you can only assume they played the same kind of system that he would have installed in preparation this week. So it was effectively a Tony Pulis display without Tony Pulis being there, if you know what I mean, because that's what else could they have done? There wasn't really much more option. The other kind of little dog versus big dog game was Burnley versus Chelsea, and Burnley took a lead. Chelsea hotly tipped this season to do marvellous things. But yeah, Burnley, Arfield, banged it in, and you were loving it.
I was loving it. Burnley, for me, I want to see Burnley do well, because I'm going to be honest, if you asked me at the start of last season what championship teams should we expect to see in the Premier League, no one would have written down Burnley. You think about the championship being a very competitive league, and you kind of, every season, it's the cliche, isn't it, all the championship, there's lots of teams here who could be in the Premier League. You hear about your Leeds United. I know that's kind of dropped somewhat off the pace now, but you talk about your Leicesters, and of course, they went up last year. Burnley aren't a team you put in that kind of bracket for me.
I think they might be okay. I'm not too worried about them. I think they're a good side. I don't know if I think I expected them to be in the discussion. I think they're always in the discussion. They've been in the Premier League in the last 10 years, so they're in and around it, you might say. But Chelsea showed that they've got a lot of good players. Fabregas was excellent. Surprisingly, I think there's a few question marks over Fabregas because he's never played in that team before. But it looked like he'd been playing there for quite some time. I thought Costa had a decent game. Schürrle was okay as well. They were the three goal scorers. They were two of the goal scorers, Costa and Schürrle, and Ivanovic also popped up. Are Chelsea going to win the league? I know it's early to say, and we're not really doing predictions for the season, but they look quite ominous. Even against Burnley, they look like...
Well, was it the Schürrle goal where there was some really nice passing up to and a sublime pass by Fabregas? Yeah. For me, it felt like it was a bit like the Chelsea team of old. It felt as if last season Mourinho very much inherited a side, and this season it seems very much as if he's trying to build a side that's almost mimicking his team that he had back in kind of 2005, 6, 7, as he kind of built up that Chelsea team.
It's interesting you say that, because in one of Mourinho's first seasons, Chelsea won about 8 games, 4-0. And I can see them doing the exact same thing this year. And last night was kind of the start of that. I can see them just dominating teams and not giving teams room to breathe. It'll be really exciting to see them face some of the big teams. To see them go against City, Pellegrini will have them ready for that. But so will Mourinho. I was a little bit. I was starting to think City might win the league just because I think they'll go about their business quite efficiently, but under the radar. But Chelsea look like a dominant force. Yeah. And I know it's only Burnley, but Fabregas looked like he'd been in that team for 5 years. It didn't look like his first game, and maybe that's because he had a lot of time against the opposition. But even so, his assist for Schürrle's goal. Oh.
I mean, 3-1 isn't the worst result for Burnley, and actually, no. I felt as if when Burnley did put their foot on the ball and knock the ball around, they actually did quite a good job of it. You know, they were capable of really holding the ball and dictating the play, be it for short spells, which is all you're ever going to get, really, against Chelsea. Chelsea pressing very high, and you could see them trying the little dinks up to Ings, who, of course, was so kind of prolific for them last year. I feel as if it's tough to judge them off one game, but the fact alone that they were willing to go and try and take a lead against Chelsea is a good sign for them. And I think if you ask most Burnley fans, they would have taken 3-1 at the start of the night, and I don't think many people would have predicted them to get a goal, to be honest.
Yeah, but they should be proud of their performance, as you point out. Like it's not easy to play Chelsea first game of the season back in the Premier League, but they did quite a good job. I think we're probably going to wrap up the Premier League. Little shout out to City. They beat Newcastle. Villa won as well. Hull won. Tottenham won. Leicester did quite well. Got a draw against Everton, who I think they felt a little bit aggrieved that they didn't win the game. But yeah, so we know other games happened. We've just got other stuff to get through. Jack, where are we going next?
Where are we going next? That's a fantastic question. Should we go to the Championship?
Let's go to the Championship. I think each week we're going to talk about interesting things that happen. And one thing particular caught my eye, and it was Aurelio Gomes in goal for Watford.
Well, me and Kino, for some reason, we ended up mentioning him in the preview shows. I don't know how that happened. I think we were talking about Tottenham, and we gave him a little shout out. You know, we said Gomes in the Championship. He's gone to Watford. What? Like everyone forgot he existed. Well, Norwich didn't forget he kind of existed. They went in with a game plan.
They did go in with a game plan. If you've not seen the Norwich goals or the performance for Aurelio Gomes, just spend 2 minutes of your day, go back and watch. They said after the game that they planned to lob him, and they did it twice. And I showed you before we recorded. I said, just keep your eye on Gomes. And the noises you made when he was coming off his line.
He stood on the edge of the 16-yard box. 16 yards. That would be a little bit far out if there was a box there. His 6-yard box. And, I mean, it's like in FIFA when you're playing your mates and you're tapping your Y or your triangle and kind of trying to bait them into doing the chip that always gets saved. Except he doesn't really have the agility jumping backwards, Gomes.
No, and Norwich did it twice. But when Bradley Johnson's doing it with a nice curling effort, you know shit's gone down. Graben did it as well. A little deflection, but you could see he was going for it. And then Tete did it. That's just to cover that game. But I think we should keep a little eye on Gomes' watch. I want to see if other teams realise he's doing it or if he's going to be forced to move backwards.
Well, it kind of it struck a chord with me of when you play junior football, back when you kind of first go to 11-a-side, aged 11 or 12, and the goals are too big for you, and you sat there on a Sunday morning in the wind in the middle of a boggy field in England, and you look at the goalkeeper and you realise, hang on a minute, he's 5 foot tall. Right, can he touch the crossbar? Probably not. Right, aim for the roof of the net, boys. And it was kind of like that, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And I honestly think we should keep a little Gomes watch just to see how he gets on next week if he stays in the side. Because it's obviously if teams are going to go for that, that's brilliant. That's like a special move that teams are going to do against Watford, which sort it out, Watford. I don't think we're going to cover the Championship in too much detail, but I should say the only two teams to win both their games. Bournemouth and Millwall.
Well, Millwall were right down there, weren't they, at the end of last year? So they must be pretty happy.
Yeah.
And so shout out to them. I believe there's only 12 teams in the Football League with 2 wins from their first 2 outside of the Premier League. So they're part of an illustrious crew there. And on the flip side in the Championship, 4 teams without points. Perhaps the most shocking being Fulham.
Yeah,
I do feel sorry for Blackpool. I know we didn't mention them in the preview shows because they're not in the Premier League. I'm sorry, Blackpool fans, but given the circumstances behind their team, the fact that the first game of the season against Forest they had 4 substitutes announced, of which 3 were goalkeepers, and I think 11 days before the start of the season they had 8 players.
Yeah.
So shout out to you, but Fulham. I'm worried for Fulham. I don't think Fulham are going to bounce back immediately, but I think they've got a very good kind of few English players who are going to benefit a lot more from playing at a championship level for a few years, and that could really push on in kind of 2 or 3 years into a kind of team that goes straight back, well, not straight back up, but go back up into the Premier League.
Yeah, that's fair. I think we should give a little shout out. And we've got a friend, Jake Cave, who's doing a Football League podcast at Lower League Talk on Twitter. So if you're a fan of the lower leagues, Jake's got together a little podcast. So if that's your thing, check it out. Yeah, you were supportive of that?
Yeah, well, the other thing is that last year we got criticised, Ben, and the reason we got criticised was we didn't cover Scottish football.
Well,
so
have we got a treat for you this week?
We've listened to the people, and we can't bring you daily or weekly, Scottish SPL action, or the second division, which is the Division 1, because numbers don't make sense, where, of course, Rangers, Hearts and Hibs are playing. So we sat down, and we decided we'd cover the Scottish Cup for women's football.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to bring you.
I think we should cover Scotland until they gain independence.
Yeah, maybe.
And then
that's our stand.
We should say no.
But then
if you're part of our podcast, then that's fine.
Surely we become the ForTheFans political podcast at that point.
Well, that's fine. We can cover a little bit of politics within our podcast is what's necessary.
I'll tell you what, when they leave, we'll call it For the British or for the English.
No, don't do that, because we tread a fine line of becoming something I don't want to become. So yeah, the Scottish Women's Cup went on. One fixture has stood out, Jack, and it was Falkirk FC 0, Rangers Ladies 22. Would you like me to read out the rest of the fixtures? Because they've not been talked about.
Yeah, well, should we talk about the Rangers ladies first? Because I feel as if at 22-0 we have to talk about it. I believe the world record is 33-0 for a competitive men's game. Now, I don't know if that's the same with ladies. And I know it doesn't quite get them as much exposure as it should, women's football. Of course, there was the Under-20s World Cup on Eurosport 2. But 6 players got hat-tricks.
I just wonder if Aurelio Gomes was in goal for Falkirk.
Maybe.
It could have been.
He dresses up in drag, hits the town on the Saturday night, turns up in Scotland on the Sunday on the train, ready to play for Falkirk.
Becomes Hannah Gomez. It'd be great.
To be fair, 22-0 is pretty bad. But they only lost the second half 8-0, Falkirk ladies, because it was... I believe it was 14-0 at half-time.
A half-time team talk. Go again. We go again. Yeah, there were quite a few high scores. Celtic under-20s, they lost 7-0 to Glasgow City. A few of the games were just abandoned or forfeited. Yeah,
Aberdeen ladies v Renfrew ladies. Aberdeen go through after Renfrew withdrew. I like to think they charged onto the pitch at the start, like, withdraw, no, we can't do it. Kind of just gave up before it began. Is there more dignity in just not turning up than losing 22-0?
I don't know. What's better? Probably withdrawing.
Yeah, if you want to let us know, tweet us, because at least now you're not the laughingstock of Twitter, Renfrew ladies, but you'll forever be in our hearts. So This was the third round. There were a few other teams that won. Falkirk ladies, I should clarify, I referred to the Falkirk FC who lost to Rangers. Apparently there's 2 teams in Falkirk. Who would have thought it? So I don't want to get confused. Falkirk ladies beat Hutchinson Vale 3-1.
Yeah, so they're flying the Falkirk flag.
And Hamilton and Spartans won 3-0 and 5-2 respectively. So they're going into the quarterfinals.
Spartans beat Forfar Farmington.
That is a great name. Is that just a family of farmers?
I don't know. But basically the bottom line is we're gonna keep up to date with the Scottish Cup third round for women's football because someone's got to, and we want it to be us. Frankly,
for the fans, the Scottish Cup women's football podcast thing.
Yeah. Speaking of Scottish football, though, we'll stay on it. In other Scotland news, Rangers, the actual Rangers, the one that Chris Boyd's the actual Rangers. Sorry, that's really insulting. I mean the men's team, the one that went out of business. They won 8-1. Chris Boyd's got a hat trick, but that's not the talking point, Jack.
What is the talking point?
The talking point is the fact that the competition they're playing in this season is called the Petrofac Training Cup.
What was that formerly known as? I don't actually know. Was that the Scottish Cup?
Well, I assume that's the Scottish League Cup.
That's one hell of a name.
If that's a thing. Sorry, Scotland. I'm not entirely sure. But that's not that good a name, is it?
It doesn't quite roll off the tongue. I wonder how they'll fit it on the trophy. You know, where it has the name on the trophy.
Yeah.
What is a Petrofac? Like, what? I'm actually going to Google this now.
No, I looked it up. It's to do with oil and gas.
Oh, I see.
They will help you deal with that. I don't really know. So that got us thinking, though. We were like the Petrofac Training Cup. There's got to be a better name. There was a better name.
There was.
with our fantasy league this year, we want to give things out to the people that are doing well in it. But we haven't got an endless amount of money. Sadly, the budget for the fans is 0. But we'd like to give out sort of t-shirts and mugs and stuff. We want to give out some cool stuff to the people that are taking part in things we do. So we need some sponsorship. The North Conference are sponsored. What's it called, Jack?
Well, this is all the Conference League. So last year you had the Skrill Prem, the Skrill North and Skrill South. And the season before it was the Blue Square Bet Prem, North and South. And you get the gist. This year, I'm pleased to say they've got a more fabulous name in the Vanarama Conference, where you can get all your van rental needs. Vanarama.
Now that is I'm calling out here the Petrofac Training Cup. Vanarama. You should have gone with them. So we thought we're going to start a campaign. If you've got a Twitter, what we'd like you to do, we're going to have it as our pinned tweet this week. We quite like to be sponsored by Vanarama. So on Twitter, they are at Vanarama. So if you can retweet or tweet Vanarama saying sponsor at For The Fans Show, then that'd be excellent. If we can get lots of us doing it, they can't ignore it. So we'd really like to be sponsored in some capacity, but we want to be For The Fans Show, brought to you by Vanarama.
It would be amazing. Vanarama sounds somewhat like an 80s band, don't you think? A pop group.
Yeah, and we're not asking for a king's ransom. We just want a little bit of support to help progress the podcast. And also, we've probably got quite a lot of. If you drive a van as well, maybe tell them I drive a van. Please support at For The Fans Show, and let's make dreams come true. That's all I can say, Jack. Let's make dreams come true.
Right.
And if we do, we will definitely focus on the Vanarama Conference North and South. I'll say it now.
We'll get a highlight of the week. So if you're from Vanarama and you've been directed here, For the Vanarama fans.
Yeah.
That could be.
For the Vanarama.
Doesn't quite flow off the tongue.
Vanarama for fans.
Right.
Anyway.
I feel like we're going to start bashing our heads against walls, and the listeners are too, if we
very
go
good.
on about Vanarama for anymore. So shall we talk about another place where our head was bashed?
I feel like coming a mile off because I've got a bloody running order in front of me, you lunatic. Yes, Thiago Motta has been bizarrely attacked in France. You've seen the video, right? If you've not seen the video, describe it to us, Chuck.
Is it Brandao? Is that the guy's name? I think it's his name. The guy. He stood in it's one of these open dugouts, like the new fancy stadium ones where it's like open plan tunnels.
Yeah.
It's not quite the traditional, right? Let's pull it out onto the pitch semi, and they have to touch each other's hands and hold hands, the players as they come out. And this kind of just Brandao that I think he plays for FC Bastia. I might be wrong there.
That's how you play.
And he's just kind of stood there. He looks like he's minding his own business. A few players walk past him, but then Motta walks up to him and you just see his eyes turn red, and he's like a bull, and he nuts him basically. Can I talk about Brandao? Because I'm sure not many people know who he is. He's terrible in Football Manager. Don't sign him. I signed him for Schalke a few years ago as a backup target man. He's terrible at heading, ironically.
Well, apparently not.
Maybe they should update that. Football Manager, sort it out. But that's all I know really about Brandao. I've got to be completely honest. He's not a player who I've familiarised myself with, the 30-year-old Brazilian player. I think he's 30.
Mossa has overreacted a little bit.
What's he done, Ben? Tell me more.
He wants it to be banned for life.
That was me face-palming, not headbutting my desk.
So, Motta's had his nose broken, so I can kind of understand his fury. But by the same token, a ban for life. I'm not sorry to bring up Luis Suarez in this juncture, but he's done way worse. And he played for Barcelona yesterday, the 6-0 win in a friendly. So to ban him for life,
I love
a little extreme.
I love the contrast between Chiellini and Motta. I know the incidents are slightly different in terms of Chiellini's like, it happened on the pitch. I'm not that bothered, because I guess Motta can't really go, it happened in the dugout, I'm not that bothered. Or it happened in the tunnels. But a ban for life is a little bit extreme. Like, he'll probably end up getting like a half-season ban or something ludicrous, or a 10-match ban.
No, I'm not sure. Sorry, I may have made a mistake here. I'm not sure if that's Motta saying that or the president of PSG.
So there you go, guys. There's some For The Fans factual broadcasting.
Well, no, at least I've corrected it now.
Maybe we should get an interview with Motta. Tweet at him for us.
Yeah, can you tweet? Yes.
Vanarama, can you help us in our quest to get Motta on the show?
Do you know Thiago Motta? That's the key question. So yeah, that was something that happened in Ligue 1. But we're gonna this is kind of the closing piece to this week's show. The Premier League, Jack. they've banned. They're trying to.
They're
ban
trying to. Yeah.
goal vines. They're sickened by it. What do you make of it?
I just don't understand how you can stop people pointing their phone at their screen, because one person gets rid of it, the next person rewinds on Sky Go and does it again.
Yeah.
It's not going to work, is it? Let's be honest. And also, people upload GIFs, don't they? And it's a lot more difficult to remove a GIF from a random image upload website. It's
just the Premier League. It's kind of one of those things of, we're going to threaten this is going to happen if you don't stop. We're not going to stop. Okay, well, please don't.
I mean, what are they going to do next if you don't stop posting goal vines? We're going to stop posting the football to you in the first place. Mwahaha. It's not going to work. Can you imagine that? Right, we're not broadcasting any more matches because you're doing your vines.
Maybe we should create the goals for Vine. If it turns out they do end up banning it, me and you should meet up each weekend. You can be the goalkeeper. I'll be the goal scorer because I've probably got quite
excellent.
I've got technique. You've got raw aggression in goal. I've got technique. You be the Gomes. I'll be the Lewis Graben, right? And we'll score the goal and we'll reenact it in a Vine, and then we're not breaking any sort of copyright laws. We're simply actors.
Maybe we could get Vanarama to supply the kit for the thing. Maybe they could give us a van to drive to the actual stadium and run onto the pitch to record the Vine.
Maybe we could go around the country in a van, recreating it outside the ground.
So I'll make this happen.
Right, at Vanarama, please sponsor for the show.
So, just in a similar note, just to close things up, and I know the comment question of the week, because we now have a question of the week rather than of the day, Manchester United have banned iPads in Old Trafford. Now, I don't know why they've banned these. If they've banned them to stop kind of recording of the matches, then people are just going to use their phones. However, if they've done it to stop the annoying imbeciles who stand there with an iPad, holding it like a weird monitor, pointing it at the stadium, blocking your view because you're sat the road behind them, fair play. Yeah.
I'm saying this as someone that went on holiday and took pictures with my iPad the whole time.
You sicken me.
Well...
Can you understand in a stadium environment why it's the most... it'd be like at a gig, instead of holding a lighter and swaying it, you just sat there with a blowtorch blowing it.
Yeah.
It'd be slightly different.
My issue is, you've got bigger problems at the moment than the iPad infiltration at Old Trafford. This week's question is, what would you ban from football after United have banned iPads? Is there something you would like to ban? But it can't be like a footballer. It has to be something within the ground, like Bovril or something.
Can I ban the officials?
Is that what you'd ban?
No. Well, we'll talk about this next week. We've got a week to mull things over now, you see, with these comment questions, which is glorious. So,
that kind of brings us to the end of the show. If you'd like to answer the question, please leave it in the comment section on YouTube, youtube.com/ForTheFans Show. Also, Twitter @ForTheFans Show, Facebook.com/ForTheFans Show. Leave it on any of these platforms. We're at ForTheFans Show on everything, basically. If you're listening on iTunes, do you remember we're available on YouTube? Feel free to subscribe to the video if you've watched it on YouTube and like the video. If you're watching on YouTube and you'd like to listen to it a little bit earlier and have it on your phone to listen to on journeys, iTunes @ForTheFans Show, where we've been we've done quite well in the ratings and the rankings recently.
I just want to applaud you for that. That's one of the best takes I've seen of someone rambling our social media info ever. You've set the bar high for the rest of the season.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
The only thing that could have made it better was a few more mentions of our future sponsor, Vanarama.
Vanarama @Vanarama. Pin tweet on our Twitter. Get on it, everyone. Get on it.
Let them know we exist.
So from me, Ben, and my lovely co-host, Jack.
Oh, lovely. Thank you very much, Ben.
You're handsome as well. Very handsome.
Oh, you.
We'll see you next time. You complimented me. I can't get over it. We'll see you next time. I'm out.